Oh, hey. Well, this is Measure of an Episode, but I'm sure you know that because you clicked on here, where our continuing mission is to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek, and not just a stereotypical rom-com will they, won't they episode. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul. And the criteria by which we judge
the proper Star Trek
these episodes.
Right.
The proper, or any of the episodes. We judge them all.
Right.
But only some of them come down. Number one, does it have any science fiction in it?
Any?
Is there a science fiction plot? Any at all? Please put some science fiction in to start. Anyway, does it have science fiction in it? Number two, does it have some sense of morality or... I always struggle on how to say this because it doesn't have to be a moral episode like where that's the epicenter of the plot line,
right? But
it has to be like in some way hovering above the plot, right? It has to be some kind of indication of that,
right?
And what's that? And what was the? What did you say the name of the episode? I don't remember.
No, so the episode is called His Way, and it's episode 20 of season 6 of DS9 of Star Trek. And apparently Paul just teleported somewhere? What was that?
No, I grumbled like Odo grumbles.
Oh.
It's an Odo episode.
I actually thought it was a chair sliding across the floor, and it just happened to sound like you phased in and out of reality for a moment there.
Actually, I have to come clean. This, I'm just, as a spoiler, not a spoiler, this is more of a teaser. I'm going to adamantly insist that this is a proper Star Trek episode.
Wow. Okay.
Adamantly.
Yeah, you're going to have to present your argument because I am on the side that this is not even close.
Right. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But you have to listen to the end, everybody. Not the end. You can, just until I give that away, which may or may not happen at the end. But you'd have to listen. Just keep listening. Please listen.
So, I mean, I understand. You must have loved this episode because it did start right in the middle of the action.
Well, wait a minute. Read the blurb. I'll read the blurb.
Sorry.
I have the blurb in front of me.
Yeah.
You want me to read it?
Yep.
Okay. Bashir, the doctor, shows off. That's not part of it. Let me start over. Okay.
Oh my God,
Bashir.
This person didn't watch the episode. Again.
Bashir. No, he totally didn't. Bashir's like not even in this episode at all. Bashir shows off his new holosuite character, a 1960s Las Vegas singer. Why wouldn't they say Vic Fontaine? Probably because they don't say his name in the opener. That's why. No, they do. They do. Anyway, a 1960s Las Vegas singer who performs a lounge full of martini-swilling customers. First of all, now they're editorializing on what's happening. They're like having some fun with it. Because not only is it not what the episode is about, but they're just making things, they're just taking things that are on screen and making that be what the episode is about.
Uh-huh.
Like when do you see anybody specifically drinking a martini?
Well, yeah.
Ever.
And Odo's not mentioned in there at all.
That's right. Oh, that's brilliant. You're so right.
Oh,
I didn't
man.
even think about that. Okay, yeah. So that this confirms it, by the way.
Yes.
This confirms that whoever is writing specifically the DS9 one, I don't think we've had any sort of consistency with this phenomenon of the cold open being what informs, the only thing that informs the blurb.
Right.
I don't think it's happened yet. So this confirms that whoever is writing these blurbs for DS9 specifically only watches the cold open, stops watching, and then writes the blurb.
Yeah, and then moves on to the next one.
Moves on.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's great.
So I guess to be fair, like based on what we have noticed, the main conflict is presented within the cold open. Like out of our 30 plus episodes, only 2 have not had the main conflict revealed in the first one, and it's actually been these last 2. Kai Wynn was the other one, where they called Kai Wynn a dude, and most decidedly not.
Just because this is a proper Star Trek episode does not mean that I enjoyed it at all. Because so there are the episode starts out with Vic Fontaine in the holosuite singing, right? Basically, does it? Yeah, it basically starts out.
Yeah,
and not only is it him singing, it's him singing an entire song.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
All the songs that happen, which are 3 of them, 3 whole, like 2.5 minute songs.
Yep.
I did some math, divided 2.5 minutes by 10 seconds. and then clicked the 10-second skip button that many times. I mean, did you watch the whole musical numbers?
Well,
I fast forwarded.
I did, because there have been times where I'm like, okay, I know what's happening, and I'll skip ahead and I'll come back to the middle of conversation and I'll have to back it up, and I'll realize that what I thought was happening was what was happening, but they were giving dialogue over it while it was happening. And so I didn't want to miss an aside conversation with like Vic talking to Odo or, whatever. So I did watch I'm so glad I did. Like it just brought so much to the plot.
Well, the first one, it just goes on and on and on.
Oh, the first one did?
The first one.
The other two didn't?
I mean, okay, wait a minute. So,
okay, sorry.
Because it's the cold open.
Right.
You'd think that, okay, we got to it's the teaser to get people hooked on the plot of the episode. And I feel like a 2-minute crooner song is not the way to do that.
Sure.
Right? They went through why not have him, hey, damn, and then have it end? Like, that's the first 10 seconds.
Right.
Like, we get it. We're at a club. Yeah. And there was a guy singing.
Well, yeah.
And it's a guy.
We've already seen that with the Doctor.
Right. We know what we get it. We
Right.
don't have to see the whole thing. And they did a whole production. And I was thinking to myself, okay, so this is what makes me a dumbass. Because I was thinking to myself, okay, it's Vic Fontaine. That's the conceit, right? Uh-huh. This is Vic Fontaine. And I was thinking to myself, oh, they got Vic Fontaine for this episode. That's pretty cool. And I just not knowing what Vic Fontaine looks like. And I was like, oh, okay. So, I mean, he looks really good for being a, 127-year-old? But I didn't even do that math. I was like, oh, they got him, and that's why they're featuring him. Right,
sure.
Because why would you hire Vic Fontaine and not, give him a feature in the movie or in the show?
Right.
And I didn't learn until 2 scenes later when they're showing the credits that it's some actor as Vic Fontaine. And I'm like, oh.
Right.
Okay. That makes more sense.
So just a little side trivia about that. And really, I'm not going to throw in a whole lot of trivia, because the trivia was just yeah, we worked hard to get the music. And yeah, this was a really fun episode. There weren't any did you know? But they did really try to get Frank Sinatra Jr. to be in it. And he was going to play a Frank Sinatra-like character. And he turned it down because he basically said, I don't want to play my dad.
Also, I have to say, I loved the guy that played Vic Fontaine.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy now, I actually thought to myself, hey, Vic is doing a great job.
Right. Well, so since you are dwelling on it, I will say this little bit of trivia. So the guy, I forget his name, Jerry something. They saw him at just a rap party, just a kind of a place, and he came up to the producers and just started talking to him like he was best buds, and just being super comfortable, and just kind of really being a 60s just Rat Pack, Lounge Lizard, that kind of guy. And they were looking for somebody to play this part. And so they reached out to him a couple weeks later, and they said, we'd like for you to come in on an audition. And he said, okay, go ahead and send the side, but I don't want to audition. I just want to come in and just kind of have a conversation. And so they said, okay. So he comes in, and they're sitting there having a conversation, and he starts to talk about how he owns a pair of Dean Martin's shoes. And as he starts talking, he's talking about Frank and Dean and all of those people. They realize that he is reading the lines from the script, but he had just segued into it so comfortably and made it a part of who he was that they had no idea that he was doing it until they halfway through they started to recognize some of the lines, and they pulled out the script and they were seeing that he was doing it. And so they realized that because he was so comfortable and so natural at doing it, they were like, this is our guy.
That's interesting. I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense. He's just one of those guys that he probably has a million friends. Or he goes home and beats his cat. One of those things.
Toss the coin, really.
Okay, so anyway, the episode continues on. And they have this thread of Dax dropping that Kira is going to see Shakar, and makes Odo jealous. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be a great episode. And so that whole scene, so Shakira.
Which makes the episode a lot better.
That would have been awesome.
Well, I guess that's their relationship portmanteau.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but they have no relationship.
Right.
But it's put out there as a triangle for so to give
right until later on. But spoiler alert. Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, and this whole scene, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but Odo, he looks sunburned for some reason.
The makeup seemed a little off through this episode, and I don't know.
It was weird.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I cut you off. I wanted to let you keep going. But we both exhausted what we wanted to say, I guess, about that. That's it.
I think we just literally crashed into each other and took out both of our momentums. Like there was...
Yeah, and then they have this scene where I don't even remember who's talking, but I think it's Dax and somebody else or whatever. It doesn't matter. But Odo is sort of hovering in the background, looking at the conversation.
Yeah.
And I was like, is he going to murder them?
All right.
Like, because he's all sunburned. It's like, maybe that's not Odo. Because I had no idea where this was going.
Right.
Based on
for sure.
Having read the blurb. Right.
After the cold open, you're like, oh, so the episode's done?
Yeah. Wow, that was fast. So I was like, well, what is this? And then we find out later when Odo was confiding in Quark. Quark? This every damn time.
I know. Like, you're saying it fine. I don't understand why you keep tripping up over your
because I feel like I'm saying quirk. I catch myself saying it like that every time because a quark. Anyway, we don't have to keep going over this. I've said too much already.
Okay.
Anyway, you get it.
I do.
So
it's Captain Quirk.
They talk. So it sort of Captain.
Wow, is the latency that bad?
No, I'm trying to gather my thoughts.
Whatever. So they're setting up the scene, and Kira leaves for the episode to go see Shakar, and Dax knows that Odo likes Kira, and that Kira knows because Odo told her in previous episodes that we have yet to see. So Odo then decides, he takes it upon himself to go see Vic because he's like the leader in love, which is also demonstrated at the beginning. And so Odo kind of goes to him and says like, hey, you had mentioned, you started to say something about the two of us, but you didn't.
Okay, wait, no, okay. Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
But what happens before this is Bashir, they set up, it's like late at night, and Bashir comes into Quark's. And he's like, man, I can't sleep. So Bashir couldn't sleep. So he gets out of bed, takes off his pajamas, puts on his full uniform, combs his hair, and then goes walking down the promenade. It's like, is that what you do? Do you like go to work when you can't sleep? It's like, well, I might as well go to work. It's 11:30 at night.
So leading up to it. So, no, I agree. And I was going to say until you said that last little bit that it could have been that he was working and he was just so wired that he couldn't fall asleep. But you're right. Like the dialogue should have said that and not like, I'm having a hard time falling asleep. Like, do you have a 3-hour sleep and you just decided to sleep in your uniform? But so the reason why he can't go up there is because Odo's in the holosuite chatting with Vic, and Vic takes him onto stage and has him pretend to play the piano. So this part, it looked like a genuine trying to learn how to pretend to play the piano. He's kind of like I feel like Rene Auberjonois has no idea how to play the piano. That was kind of the impression that I got. And so this was perfect of him just kind of pretending to follow along. But there's a scene in front of the camera or in front of the piano where we can see Odo's shoulders and head, and Vic comes over and looks at him. And the way Odo turns his head and looks back at the piano and then turns his head back up and looks back at the piano and is kind of bobbing his head around, he looked like a Muppet. And this made me want like a Muppet Star Trek genuine crossover so bad. I know that there's no way that it could logistically happen, but it was just this great little where he's like kind of looking up with that open mouth Muppet smile, and then he's looking back down at the piano and his head is bobbing around the whole time.
Well, I mean, I don't think it could never happen. I mean, at the time it was a popular show, and I guarantee there's a Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner Muppet thing where he comes on Sesame Street and does something.
Right,
I'm sure that happened.
Yeah, I'll check. I'll check. Because I mean, right, there's Pigs in Space, which is a Star Trek parody, but I don't know if it's ever been actually the Muppets with Star Trek.
But it would have been awesome because you're totally right. The way he's like bobbing his head,
Uh-huh.
I mean, okay, so this is one of those things that I fast forwarded through, but I was gonna knock it, but I understand why they did the whole song. The whole reason Vic did that to him, and the whole reason they didn't have Odo just magically be able to play the piano,
right, which I loved,
is that they wanted him to loosen up.
Right.
And that was his way of loosening up, is that, hey, this can be fun even though you're not doing anything, right? Like it's make believe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's a show. So, right. So here was the part that bothered me. So he's pretending to play the piano. right? And he knows he's pretending to play. And he's just swinging his hands around, kind of following what the keys are doing and pretending to play. When the song is done, he then looks at his hands like they're magic hands and they were the ones that actually played the piano. And then when we come back from the commercial break, we see him fingering the table like he's attracted to it. But they're like...
He Me Too's the table. Yeah.
Like he gets to... which is it? He gets to third base with the table. But he's never... He didn't do any of that actual keying.
Yeah. He buys into his own fraud pretty quickly.
Right.
Like it doesn't take... Right?
Yeah.
Like,
but then he immediately goes back. Like when he's by himself, he's practicing the what the keys did. And then when the girl comes in, he starts to be like, oh no, that wasn't me.
Well, the girl... Okay, so this is what happened. So there is a reference. There's two references in this episode that I could not believe happened. I had to rewind it and make sure that's what the hollow lady said.
Okay.
Not Vic Damone. Vic Fontaine. He brings girls to go on a date with Odo.
Mm-hmm.
And Odo, of course, they have the thing that happens in science fiction shows all the time where somebody doesn't know what something is. And they say, like, what do you mean, this guy? And then they're like, you're a comedian and a piano player. And she says, like Victor Borge.
Right.
And I was like, what? First of all, Victor Borge is like this weird classical comedy guy who was an amazing pianist and also a really funny guy. And he was probably the peak of popularity before we were born.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he was popular. I think he had a resurgence when they released like a VHS that I myself got when I was like 10 years old and fell in love with Victor Borge.
Right.
But he's a niche guy at this point in the late 90s. He may have even passed away. And the fact that they wrote that in, maybe they were playing to the fact that it was supposed to be in the 60s, I guess.
Well, that, and also, again, the writers are in their 30s, if not older. When they were they've got to be older, 30s and 40s. So they were trying to come up with popular piano players at the time. And I feel like
he wasn't even a jazz. I mean, first of all, this girl, playing sort of the stereotypical ditzy Vegas girl, would not know who Victor Borge is, right? Like, there's no way. He wasn't even that popular. Maybe she would know like another famous jazz pianist or something like that. So, so that just blew me away, that Victor Borge. I mean, DS9 has everything. Everything.
Right. It's just, it's the kitchen sink. It's the kitchen sink series. Well, and so just speaking to that moment, like the dialogue with the ladies, it made me realize that Odo has this thing where when he's confused about something, he has this look like the other person is gesturing wildly, something ridiculous that he cannot figure out what they're trying to, what he has to decipher from them. And it's just this look of, his thought is, what are you saying?
Is that where his eyes get kind of wide?
Yeah, and he kind of tilts his head back a little bit, and he does a full shoulder head turn to the gal, and then back to Vic Fontaine. And it's this episode being Odo-centric. It was he in that same scene he does play the straight man, and when it's not dealing with 60s like Hollywood stars and celebrities and that kind of thing, like I thought it was genuinely humorous. But when it was, and he was just saying who. It seemed a little forced, but when Vic says, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And he's like, I have no idea. Like,
I don't know.
And then he says, you practice if you get my meaning. And he goes, no.
I actually really enjoyed Odo in this. And I don't know if it's because he just had more to do as a character.
I think
versus just being
he wasn't just grumbling and yelling. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, almost done with season 6, right? So he's really ingrained in the character at this point. But I really enjoyed how he handled all these, because he's sort of befuddled, and you don't see Odo that way very much. And he was just very human, I guess, which is maybe a demerit for the actual character writing, because he's not supposed to be human. But it just felt like I kind of felt for him. I understood what was happening, right? I felt like I was connected in some way to it.
Yeah, well, and he did speak to that. Vic says, like, don't you have any emotions? He said, I do. I don't see the need for them in my line of work or something like that.
Right,
So
they just don't show them very often.
yeah.
That kind of thing.
And there was something else that you just said about that. Rene Auberjonois actually said, like, when he first read this episode, he didn't like it because of exactly what you were saying. Like, Odo is just this dark, angsty character, an angry character. And so when he read it, there was a lot of, well, Odo wouldn't do this, Odo wouldn't do this. And then he had to take a step away from it and kind of realize what the character arc was, what the writers were going for. And then when he went back to it with a fresh pair of eyes, not necessarily as the character, but as what the series and the show was going for, he actually really enjoyed it. And by the end, he said it was one of his favorite episodes.
I mean, I think it has its own little nice arc to it.
Yeah.
It does hold together. Okay, so what happens is Vic puts together a Kira holodeck program and has her try to seduce Odo to make him a little bit more comfortable with Kira. It blows up. It doesn't work. Odo says, look, I know she looks like Kira, but she isn't. She's not doing anything that Kira would do. And then Vic tricks both of them into coming to the holodeck, where Odo thinks that Vic has made a life-perfect Kira, a perfect life-like Kira. That's what I was looking for.
An LMD.
Yeah. And Kira thinks that Odo is just wanted to have her to dinner in that setting, that was just a romantic, which I feel like would happen often, right?
Yeah, why not? Like, you pick anywhere.
Yeah, you could go anywhere you wanted.
Right, which was weird, which she's like, maybe we can do it somewhere not on a holosuite. I'm like, why? Like, why would you pick some dive on this way station when you could go to Ryza?
Right. It'd be like living on a food court, like, for the last 10 years, and being like, and like, oh, we have this magical machine that can take us anywhere. We can eat any food that we want, no matter what. But no, I'd rather go to McDonald's again. Let's go to McDonald's or Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Well, chunky chicken. Like, let's just go there.
Yeah. What are we doing here? This place sucks. So this scene is why this is a proper Star Trek episode, right? This scene could not happen in a non-science fiction setting.
Lies.
Could not. How?
It happens all the time.
No. With taking the exact, like, if you take Kira is not on any other show. No, the idea, the premise is that you have someone who, you have a computer generated thing who looks exactly like them, right? Exactly like them. And it is a computer simulation to the point where Odo knows that it's not that person and doesn't like her, right? And then you have the where Odo thinks it's the simulation and he's wrong. Like, when does that ever happen? When does that happen before?
There's so many times where the person who's in love with someone will be talking to somebody else, like, they role play, so like, okay, pretend I'm this person, and then they go into it and he's like, yeah, but that's not how it would go. Like, that's not what she would say and whatever. And they stop it. And then they go back to that scene and the person who's in love, like, will talk to a wall where he thinks the other guy is, or where he's just voicing his opinions. And it just so happens that the girl that he's in love with is in earshot. And
yes, I agree with you that the sort of the thought behind this has happened before. But this specific situation where you're sitting in front of somebody and you think that they're a computer simulation, and they're not. They're the real person. I don't know of anything where that's actually happened, or where you could do that without some sort of science fiction element.
Right. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but it would take no heavy lifting to switch this to something that's not Star Trek. And that's the reason why, like, I felt that this was a fun episode. It kind of tied everything up. It was a good resolution to a long story arc, but it was so unoriginal. Like, there's nothing that they brought to the table that hasn't been done before, except for kind of what you're saying, but it's just putting it in a mildly sci-fi setting. Like, they didn't do anything where it could only happen in Star Trek. And I get what you're saying about the hologram being, you can't do that anywhere else, but I feel like it would, you could almost literally do a find and replace and be able to do that scene somewhere else.
I don't know. I think it would be harder than that. In order to take, I mean, yes, you're right in that the situational aspect of it is old, right?
Right. Cyrano de Bergerac, like, it's actually a mild spin on that. Yeah.
But I feel like the the action that is or the I don't know what you'd call it, the diegesis of the way that they execute it. You could only do it in Star Trek, or I guess you could do it in other science fiction shows if they had this.
At this point, yeah, no, yeah. But that's why we had to take it out.
But so I think so the tale of morality in terms of, or the morality element of this episode. I know what you might think. You might think, well,
there wasn't one.
It was morally wrong for Vic to trick Odo and for him to also trick what's her name? Kira. She like that. Maybe that's what you're thinking. It's not true. That's not the morality.
What?
The morality. Here's the morality. What? Mind blow. So the morality is that they created, from what I can tell, a sentient being on the holodeck, which has not been, this is not the first time Star Trek has done this.
Right.
It's happened before. There's usually more dire consequences. With this, that seems to be like, he's just a guy, and we shut him off. And there's the morality. They've inflicted slavery on Vic Damone. No, on Vic Fontaine, because he knows he is aware of himself, right? He knows what's happening. So the idea, and he even says it. He's like, "Hey, would you mind just leaving the holodeck running after you leave for a few minutes? Like, I feel like singing." I was like, "Oh my God, this is heartbreaking."
Okay.
Like he knows when he's turned off.
So,
which means that he sits there when he's turned off, just waiting in infinite oblivion, waiting to be turned back on.
Well, possibly. I mean, but
it's heartbreaking.
For that to happen, he's got to be self-running. I would imagine that when he turns back on, he knows how much time has lapsed. It's not that he is waiting in that interim. But to speak to the singing part, like Odo doesn't know like how many more songs he wants to sing or how long each song takes. Like,
yeah. Did he mean like, I'm not done with my life yet? Let me carry out my career until I get old. Like, I want to sing some more. Like,
right?
Like I'm not done with my career.
That's a little hard.
Or did he mean like, yeah?
But
right?
the way I pictured it was, he's like halfway through a song, and he gets shut off. He's like, oh, come on. Like, the other thing too is I don't think he's, I mean, I guess we could argue the semantics on this, but I don't think I believe the program has been made to be self-aware that he's a hologram. So people can talk to him where he's aware of what's happening in the outside world without having to explain that, yes, he's in the 24th century and blah, blah, blah. So like it's like they just plucked a lounge lizard from the 1960s and put him in the 23rd century. I'm pretty sure it's 23rd. And put him in the 23rd century. So he's not sentient in the fact that he is his own life form. Right,
but he also has very good powers of perception. He's not just, that's not like his only trait, that he knows he's essentially, like, though they programmed him to say, I am a hologram, that kind of, it's not the only thing they gave him. They gave him the ability to essentially read other people's emotions, to talk to other people, to bond with other people, and to understand what other people are going through emotionally, and then create a solution for that works, by the way.
Right.
I don't know. Like, we're getting into pretty close into sentient being here, right? How would you tell the difference?
Right. Well, yeah. And that's what test is that? That's
the
Lectors. No.
Yeah. What is that called? The Turing test.
Yeah.
Turing test.
Let's say you're right, but he also seems to have the ability to turn himself on because he was able to reach out to Odo twice through the.
I know he calls him.
Yeah.
Like a holodeck program calls him. Right. He got robo-dialed.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and then how he like just shows up in Kira's meditation program, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" Like,
it's funny because it's almost the same plot as in Next Gen when they create a sentient Moriarty. It's just non-destructive Moriarty, right? Like, he starts to take over the ship and he learns about the ship and this, but in the DS9, he knows about the ship. He knows that there's this other world,
right,
but has zero curiosity about it.
Right.
Right. He just wants to help his friend.
Yeah. Well, and he just likes hanging out with his friends whenever they stop by. Right.
Right. Whenever they're not,
well, and that's
punishing
right.
him.
Well, by sending him into oblivion for however long. I mean, and if he is an actual computer program, think about how fast computer programs run, which means that time is stretched out for him even more so. So, just a couple minutes would be several hours, if not several days. So if he's off for like 24 hours.
It could be billions of years.
Right.
I mean, like, we don't know.
Right.
Like, he could be sitting in a room with nothing to do for billions of years.
Before finally somebody brings him back. I mean, that's got to be not the case, because if you're sitting in isolation for that much time, you would go crazy, even if he is sentient.
Right. But if he's a computer, it just resets you. But you remember, right? Like, it's just like, oh, you went crazy in there for that billion years. We're going to take that away. But he still had to endure the billion years.
What if, like, it just resets the internal clock and just resets all of his emotional programs and, like, keeps the memories of the time that he was active and not the time when he was inactive. So every time he gets turned off, he just goes mad with insanity. And then and then as soon as he comes back, all is right again. Like,
yeah. But therein lies the tale of morality for this episode.
Right. But I mean, you're putting that on the writers, and it had nothing to do with the plot. I mean, we could talk about the moral dilemmas and ethical dilemmas that happen to third-party characters all the time and be like, therefore, it's a Star Trek episode.
I feel like if there are moral implications, then our criteria holds true. It's not that somebody's cheating on somebody and they don't bring it up.
Right.
Like, it's not like that.
Well, okay, but then going back to the Paradise Syndrome, like, there were plenty of moral implications, but nobody cared about them.
I totally forgot about that episode. Yeah, but I still think, what did we decide on that one? What's our list say?
My internet's down. I can't pull it up right now.
I don't think we considered it a proper Star Trek episode.
Right.
Can't remember that.
I know.
That's bad.
Well, okay, so if we landed on that being a Star Trek episode, then yes, you can say that this is also a proper Star Trek based on your criteria. I still adamantly disagree. I mean, even if I were to say yes, I think the thing that is the most disappointing about this episode is just there was nothing original about it. Yes, it answers the question.
Plot-wise, no. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're saying the originality comes from the holodeck in general, like having a replicated individual and a sentient hologram. But those two things aside, like the episode is just a played out rom-com. I mean, every rom-com movie does this. Every show that has a will they, won't they character does this.
Even the kiss in the rain that happens at the end.
Right.
Like, it just wasn't raining at that particular time.
Yeah.
But, like, I appreciated that moment for some reason. I was like, oh, maybe I liked the exchange up to it.
I'm just a Bajoran standing in front of a changeling.
It felt that way, but I think what I liked about it was the acting part of it.
That they were irritated about it. That's what I liked.
Yeah, I like because they're both kind of irritated people.
Right.
They did kind of pull a switcheroo on me because they made Odo mad when they both find out the ruse that Vic pulled on them, and Kira was seemingly just like, I guess, confused but not upset. Like, I kind of expected Kira to just like be. There's a word for when you get mad a lot.
Ain't mad?
No,
annoyed.
It's like volcanic. It's like that. Anyway, like her character is like that, right? She seems to get irritated or mad a lot, kind of like B'Elanna Torres. No, Torres. So did you not expect that? I was expecting her to like storm off and be pissed, and Odo had to go apologize.
No, actually, the way it happened was exactly how I expected, because Odo thought that he was talking to a hologram, so he's able to express his feelings, and then he found out that he had been lied to, and so he was pissed that he was actually sharing his feelings with the real Kira, and Kira didn't know that he didn't know, so she was confused why he was pretending that she was a hologram, and then why he got mad about actually confessing his feelings. So
I know, she should have turned to Vic and be like, "Why do you still exist? Clearly you are a clear and present danger to the security of the station if you can go do the things that you're doing." I don't know. I was expecting that to happen. I mean, I guess that's because that's the trope.
Right.
At some point in these romantic comedies, the guy does something to piss off the girl.
Right, the girl gets mad and storms off. Yeah.
Anyway, so I still think this is a proper Star Trek episode because of all the previously stated criteria.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess until you find out where we stood on the Paradise Syndrome, we either have to change Paradise Syndrome or we have to change this one.
Well, I mean, we should think about this, though, because I think it's going to get harder and harder to do that. First of all, it's going to be very hard because we do not have a list saying where we come down on each one of these episodes.
It's coming.
So
it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, our criteria is going to change over time, right? As we watch more episodes. I mean, maybe at a certain point after 13 years, we can go back and rewatch them all. Like, we just go start again.
Now we have our criteria solidified.
It's going to be changing.
It could well be, but I mean, we talked about this before. I don't think this is the episode we're going to pivot on. And
what if it was? What if it is?
I mean, okay, so that's not the moral or ethical dilemma that's laced through the episode. He is fully aware of when he gets turned off, and he's completely okay with it. And when he comes back, and he is able to reach out outside of his program to communicate with others. So, and he's fully aware of where they would be and how much time has passed. You know, he didn't hop around. I mean, maybe he did, but he didn't hop around from office to office being, calling out Odo.
Yeah. Hey, pal. How's it going?
Vic Fontaine. Oh, that was really bad.
What, were you trying to be Odo?
No, I was trying to be Bashir.
Oh. Oh, you mean Bashir, the guy that this episode is about?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I cannot get behind that being the dilemma in Regeneration. It wasn't outwardly stated, but it was Archer trying to save those people because they hadn't done anything wrong. He was still trying to not kill them. The dilemma that was in the Paradise Syndrome was not in the episode, but it became apparent because of how much time has passed between that original airing and now. Or even the Dyson Sphere. The ethical dilemma was just, do relics still have a purpose past their time?
Right.
And so this episode, the quandary of do we have the right to turn on and off sentient beings was addressed much better in previous episodes.
And intentionally create them. Because Moriarty in Next Gen was
an accident, right?
He was an accident.
Right.
So maybe there's more of a tale of morality there in that you have to be careful what you do, I guess is the implication. Here, there is no implication, I suppose, in terms of the consequences of the episode, except for that last line.
Right.
Maybe that last line is what solidifies it for
Sure.
me. And that he says, hey, would you mind leaving me on? Would you mind not banishing me to oblivion for just 5 more minutes so I can do that? Meanwhile, he was just uploading himself to the computer outside of the holodeck so he could live on,
right,
and which would be great. Like, how awesome would it be if I say this about every single episode now with all the day players, is that why couldn't they be a new character on the show? Because...
Well, and in a way he does come back more often than this episode.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, he is kind of a recurring character through the rest of the series.
I mean, there's only a season left.
Well, right.
Basically.
But I think in all he's in a total of like 8 more episodes.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure we'll never watch them, but that's great that he's back.
We got 13 years, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So you're a no. You're a hard no.
I'm a hard no. Because I mean, even if I did want to say yes, it's just they didn't bring anything unique and original to this tired storyline. And so, and I know that I've said this to you all the time. Like, it's not a question of how much you agree with it. It's objectively yes or no. But I don't think that the sci-fi in here was strong enough to say that, yes, this was a sci-fi plot. And I did not see a moral or ethical dilemma.
I feel like if they had him go and secretly kill Shakar.
Right? Yeah.
Because
sure.
He was jealous?
Yeah. Then there's absolutely a moral and ethical dilemma.
Something we can sink our teeth into.
Yeah.
Oh, I did fast forward. Speaking of ethical dilemmas, I did also fast forward through the scene where Odo is humming to himself and Cisco starts snapping along.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything there. Yeah. I thought that scene was going to be there to demonstrate some new information about something.
It makes me think that Cisco is like the most underdeveloped character, at least so far in the episodes that we've watched. It seems like everybody else has a good established flow as a character, but Cisco, he just always seems irascible. That's the word I was looking for, by the way.
Okay. Unable to rest.
Yeah. But for Cisco, he didn't he just always seems, I don't know, it's hard for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do.
After all the information I just gave you.
Based on the episodes we've seen so far, you're right. He's very one note, and even when he is dealing with other things that should make him well-rounded, he is still playing the same level of intensity.
He's just inconsistent. I feel like he's either like laid back and be like snapping along to somebody humming and is like, hey, I'm Cisco. And then all of a sudden he'll like snap internally, not like snap with his fingers, but like snap. And then he's like super angry or super intense. And then he's back with his wide-eyed smile, And you're like, oh, Jesus. Like,
well, and I think in that particular instance, there's there's off-duty Cisco and there's Commander/Captain Cisco.
Picard was never really that much different as when he's captain versus when he's just regular old Picard,
Yeah.
Are any of them different in that show, really? Off-duty and on-duty? Really? I mean, maybe Riker, we just don't see it,
No, I mean, maybe in the mildest of senses. I mean, Jellicoe.
He's a softie when he takes off the pins.
Well, yeah, he's got pictures of his kids in the back, or pictures of his kids' art in the background.
Yeah, he brings it with him.
Yeah, so yeah.
Although it does feel like his wife made him take that with. Like it feels like I would never hear the end of it. I didn't take this with me. I'm going to throw it. I'm going to feed it to the fish before I kill it. Actually, I'm going to feed it to the fish to kill it.
Yeah, but I mean, then why? Because he did have it up on the wall behind him when he was like it looked like Captain Picard Day behind him. Just every day is Captain Jellicoe Day.
Jellicoe. It sounds like food.
it's like crispy Jello.
It's like Jellicoe sausages or Jellicoe. It could be milk.
Ew, no, I would never drink Jellicoe milk. Like that does not sound pleasant to me in the slightest.
It's like chocolate milk.
But
those big gallons of chocolate milk.
Yeah. And also, I mean, they say like clearly on the bottle, shake vigorously before pouring. And I don't really want a drink where I have to continually shake vigorously. Like a gallon's worth? That's like a week's worth of chocolate milk.
Well, a gallon's worth. I mean, I guess if you have a bunch of kids who like chocolate milk.
Yeah, but I would buy it if I was going through chocolate milk in 2 days. Like, I had 5 kids and all of them drank 1 glass a day. Like, then I would buy chocolate milk by the gallon. But I feel like we're avoiding the subject. I feel like good Star Trek, proper Star Trek, tells something in a way that's never been told before. And this has been told countless times.
Okay, would it have been better if we went into that last scene where Kira and Odo are having dinner? Right? If we went in not knowing it was really Kira, and then we find out at the end of that scene. But if you just they could have just cut out that entire exchange where Vic goes to see Kira when she's meditating. I feel like that would have made it way better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But would that have changed it? It doesn't really change anything, only just a better reveal. But does that make it better? In terms of our criteria, you know what I mean? All that.
In terms of our criteria, no, not really. Because the moral and ethical dilemma at that point still falls on whether or not Vic Fontaine did the right thing. And I mean, I guess that would be the dilemma in the episode, is whether or not Vic Fontaine did the right thing. It ultimately proved out to be, yes, he did, but he went behind both of their backs when Odo explicitly told him not to.
Vic doesn't really suffer any consequences for doing that, nor does Odo or Kira hold it against him.
Right. But it's definitely more of a talking point than your dilemma that you're presenting.
What, that they banish him to infinite oblivion?
Yeah. I mean, that's you inferring based on one line. Nowhere else is that stated anywhere in the episode.
I agree to disagree.
I think it was laced throughout the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, so speaking that out loud, I could accept the argument that the moral dilemma is more on whether or not Vic Fontaine did the right thing. Obviously, in the episode, it's presented that yes, he did. Everybody likes him, and it worked out for the best anyway. But regardless, he still went behind their backs to make it work. And should he have done that, not knowing what the outcome would be? That's where the debate and the argument could be.
I mean, I think the answer would be no, he shouldn't have, because you shouldn't trick your friends.
Right.
Like, that's not a nice thing to do. But I think at the end, Odo would have said, hey, thanks for tricking me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that is kind of how it went. But yeah.
Does he thank him? He does thank him later.
Yeah.
He does. Right before he banishes him to infinite oblivion.
Yeah. He said, You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. So where are we falling on this?
I'm adamant. It stays.
I've conceded on the moral
proper
and
Star Trek
dilemma.
episode.
I think that the question should be like, was Vic Fontaine in the right of doing so? And that's where the argument is. Again, it all works out in the end, so everybody would say no, but still, that is a moment where he did make a choice that he shouldn't have. But as far as the sci-fi, I can't give it to you. So you're a yes, I'm a no, and that's kind of where it's falling.
We're at an impasse.
We are, and that surprises me, just because I see what you're saying about the sci-fi element, and I don't know. I think I would have to hear more people's opinions on this after we've discussed it. So, Mike and other listeners, if you have a position that you want to share with us, please let us know. You can email us at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode@gmail.com. And let us know what you think. Was His Way of Star Trek Deep Space Nine a proper Star Trek episode or not?
Absolutely. And if you're feeling generous, please go and rate us on your podcast platform. It helps us tremendously. I know we ask this a lot, but it really helps us out. Please go in and rate us. I think it helps us the most on Apple Podcasts. I think that's the best place to do it.
Well, if you're listening through Apple Podcasts, chances are you're listening on an iPhone, which means you can do multiple things at once. And just pull up the podcast while you're listening and just give us that review.
That's a great point. Yeah, what we're saying doesn't require all of your attention at any given point. In fact, it should require very little of your attention.
Yeah.
You should be able to do quite a few other things while listening to our podcast.
Yeah, I feel like the entirety of what we would like you to do takes less than 30 seconds of reviewing and rating and posting a review of 1 word, 3, 5.
Yeah. Or you could just say snarf, snarf. Like, as long as we get, like it doesn't matter. As long as you do the 5 stars. 5 stars only, please. Or 4. You could do 4.
But I just want to, that was S as in Sam, M as in Mark, A as in Apple, R as in Ralph, and F as in Frank.
Oh, no. It was S as in Sierra, N as in November.
Okay. So it was Snarf, like Thundercats.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to think what our next, so we've got Kirk Blurking and Snarf Snarf for our 2 shirts now. The shirt should have 4 stars, Snarf Snarf.
We don't have to even really explain anything on the back, do we?
No, I think that we should have our logo on both of these shirts. We should have our logo on the front in like where the insignia should be, and then on the back it says "Stop Kirk Blurking me" or 4 stars, Snarf Snarf.
All right, let's see what we're watching next.
Sounds good.
The Next Generation.
Sweet.
Season 4, episode 15.
Okay.
First Contact.
No.
Yeah, I guess.
No, that can't be right.
First Contact. That's what it says.
Are you serious?
I think this sounds right. This sounds right that there was an episode called First Contact. I don't think it's about the same thing as the movie First Contact is about.
Right.
First of all, that would be really weird to just redo an episode of the show.
This would be really great as a movie. No time. Let's just do it as a TV show. Can we please go back to it? All right, fine.
Yeah.
A surgically altered Riker has been on an acculturation mission for months under an alias, but a serious injury threatens to blow his cover. I'm pretty sure this has Baby New Earth, Lilith from Frasier, in it.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. All right, let's go watch it.